Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, I wanted to come on here because recently it was announced by, I guess you could say, Konami and Nintendo collaboratively that at the end of this month we are going to be getting. I think it's at the end of this month, at least towards the end of it. We're going to be getting a early days collection. And the early days collection is of the Yu-Gi-Oh games, from Konami. Basically, these are all the GBA, Game Boy Advance, and GBC, Game Boy Color Yu-Gi-Oh games. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be coming on to PS5 or PS4, PlayStation Store, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, or whatever, Microsoft Store. Well, actually, it's going to be on the Microsoft Store. It's going to be on Windows, so you might be able to play it through your Xbox and all that. But it will not be available like with PlayStation and all that for right now. Now you would think that's kind of a missed golden opportunity, right? Like, wait a minute, they have the Cowabunga collection for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the PS4, that can be upgraded to PS5 standards, and you have the GBA, you have the GBC, I should say, games there, or not GBC, but you have the GB Game Boy games there. It's like, what's the issue? And I think it might be a licensing deal, although both are Konami, both are Konami and everything. But I think it might just be, just a situation to where a majority of the Yu-Gi-Oh games that came out when they started doing the games were mostly portable games before they started to go into the more console games and everything that, nowadays we see with, the Switch, the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox and so on. I think even the Wii had a few of them, as well as the like I said, the PS4 and the 360. That's when you started to see them get more consoleized. But this is more like as they put it, the early days, so they can kind of give you like, an idea of, or not an idea, but kind of give you the feeling of playing a Yu-Gi-Oh game without having to, bring out the cards. You could just play it online, or not online, but you could just play against the AI. Or if your system, like let's say, the DS, excuse me there, the Nintendo DS or the 3DS, or in my case the 2DS, had online capabilities, you could also play online with people. Now, I do have at least two of them. I do have at least two of the games. One of them is packed away somewhere. I don't know where it's at. It is the Duelist one. It is the Duelist one, if you will. So I have that packed away somewhere. That's the GBA one. That's the GBA one. The Duelist. I think it's Duelist King. Duelist something, if you will. And let me double check, guys. Let me double check. But it's basically it's the Duelist one, if you will. That's mainly what it is. Again, let me check. Let me kind of double check on this, guys, as I'm doing this. But yeah, I got that. That's the one I have. I have the. Hold on for a sec. Here we go. But yeah, it is the early days collection. It is the early days collection, if you will. I have that. They did an official announcement not that long ago, and it's being released in commemoration of Yu-Gi-Oh's 25th anniversary as a trading card. That's right. This year will mark 25 years, of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise as a trading card game. Now you might say, well, that's not entirely true. Yu-Gi-Oh came out basically in 1996, which is going to be 30 years next year, or 30 years if you're going to celebrate it this year around a certain time frame, I should say. And you would be right. Yu-Gi-Oh, in a sense, started 30 years ago next year, or sometime this year, whenever you want to celebrate it. It did. It did do that and everything, but as a card that basically overtook the country, or not the country, but the world, I should say, became a phenomenon. This basically is the 25th anniversary. 30 years will be next year as an entire franchise, and that's a big deal. But as far as like trading card game, it'll be 25 years, I should say, going on this year. And what's even crazier is basically Yu-Gi-Oh! I think the anime is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that's what's going on. I think it is celebrating 25 years this year, I believe. Let me double check. I know it's got an. I know we had an anime here. Well, which it was the dubbed version of the anime, I should say. I know we had the anime here and everything. Let's see, Dual Monster. Yeah, 2000. Be 25 years this year, believe it or not, since that came out. And I didn't even know about it until I think later on when I moved out on my own to Lawrence, Kansas. And my goodness, I was just, be honest with you, I was just taken aback by it. Because you had Pokemon, you had Digimon, and even though I knew Pokemon was becoming a huge phenomenon, it just wasn't for me. I think I was just at that age to where it's like, if it would have came out years before, like, as soon as I entered high school or I was ending middle school, junior high, if you will, if it would have came out at that time, then yeah, I might have been into it. But it came out at a time to where I was leaning more towards things that were beyond that, if you know what I mean. And it felt more like it was, and it still is technically, in my opinion, aimed at a younger audience. No offense in that. No offense in that, but it felt like it was aimed at that time and still is to an extent today at a younger audience. Well, Digimon, if you will, even though it was like, Pokemon, but, a lot more action and violence and all that, Digimon felt like it was meant for the more older demographic. Like, Pokemon's your start, and Digimon's like, it's kind of like what they stand by, evolution, if you will. It's like you're evolving from being a Pokemon fan to a Digimon fan because they do a lot more. And some of their evolutions and transformations in there for the Digimon and all that were just like, whoa, did not see that coming. I mean, how many of us looked at Gatomon in Digimon and said, oh, she's going to evolve into this, waifu known as Angel Woman. How many of us thought that was going to happen unless we read the manga or we saw early clips of the anime and everything, or the OVA? How many of us thought Gatomon's going to evolve into Angel Woman? How many of us thought that when we first saw it? None of us. None of us. And what happens? As soon as Kari gets it, Kari gets the Digi-Device for Gatomon, what happens? She becomes Angel Woman. It's like, whoa. Incoming waifu. Incoming waifu. Holy crap. Holy crap. So you kind of get why people would grow more towards Digimon after kind of having maybe like a brief stint with, Pokemon and everything. But then you get Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Was kind of like that next step above Digimon, if you will. It's like you would watch Digimon and enjoy it because it was like an older version of Pokemon. But then you saw Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're like, that's what both should be. You look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're like, that's what both Digimon and Pokemon should be. Because, my goodness, this anime, this manga, was like nothing I'd ever seen. Yes, it helped populate a very, even to this day, very, successfully franchised, trading card game. But my goodness, I cannot tell you how hooked I got when I started watching this. And I started watching it because I heard it from word of mouth. Oh, people asking me, have you seen Yu-Gi-Oh? Have you seen Yu-Gi-Oh? And I was like, what's that? And they said, oh, you got to see it. You got to watch it. So what did I do? I said, well, and I do apologize for that. That's a friendship notification there. But anyway, I would ask, okay, well, can I see it? And they would tell me it's on, I think it's on Fox. I think it's on Fox or WB or something like that. So I said, okay, I'll go tune in and watch. Excuse me. And the moment I first watched one of the episodes of season 1, I was hooked. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting because, yeah, they were playing the game, but the way they were playing it, it was like, okay, this is, like I said, this is what, I didn't think of it in this manner at that time. But obviously I know people probably were, but when you look back on it, and you remember that first time you see the episode like I did, you start realizing that that's what Pokemon and Digimon could have been, combined. Because, it's like you looked at this, and you're like, damn, this is pretty good. It's more violent, believe it or not. It's actually more violent, even for a 4Kids dub, it's more violent and everything than Digimon. And then what's crazy is, we were all, excuse me, that I'm getting a little tongue tied, but we were all getting online at that time, right? The internet just, was coming out of its infancy. Everybody had, access to the internet at home, either through dial-up or whatever other means, right? Mostly through dial-up. And it was through the internet. And I think this was just a little before they started to go more into the broadband and cable and everything and the Wi-Fi. But for all of us that had access to that internet at that time, we would look online, all this information about, Yu-Gi-Oh! We would look it up, and we would see forums coming up that said differences. And we were like, what are they talking about differences, right? Because we knew it was an anime, but we were thinking, what's so different about, this anime that's based on a card game that has the characters playing said card game in show, but having the monsters come to life via hologram or magical, millennium items, as we find out later on. It's like, what makes it so different, between, the North American side and the Japanese side, right? We're thinking to ourselves, what makes it so different? And then we see all these images. We see all these comparison images of the episodes, and we're like, damn. We were right. It's like, we knew it was more violent than Digimon and Pokemon combined, but we had no idea how violent. We had no idea. And throughout the seasons that followed, every time an episode would debut on 4Kids, if we didn't have access to try to get that episode through other means, like torrents or whatever, we would watch the episode, and then not even a few days or a week later, we'd get a new page on one of these websites showing us the comparison, the difference between said episodes, what was left in, what was altered, what was edited out. It's like, shoot. I mean, come on. Talk about a difference. Talk about a difference in presentation. And what's crazy is obviously Funimation, who was the distributor, DVD and video and VHS wise, of the Yu-Gi-Oh series at the time. Obviously, they heard, they heard the I guess you could say the criticism of, hey, why aren't we getting this full context here with these episodes compared to what we're seeing? Like, we didn't have a problem with what we were seeing. We were enjoying it, but we were looking at this going like, okay, why did you take this out? You could have just left it in. You could have gave a parental guidance warning at the beginning or something. So obviously Funimation heard that, got together with the 4Kids people and said, hey, let's do a redubbing of the episodes, but let's do a redubbing of the original Japanese scripts translated. And that's what they did. And for a while, we ended up getting, and I had a couple of them before I sold them off because I needed, some money at the time. We had, on VHS, but mostly DVD, Funimation releasing the English uncut English dub of how Yu-Gi-Oh originally was presented, Duel Monsters Yu-Gi-Oh that is, was presented in Japan. Now I say Duel Monsters Yu-Gi-Oh because it wasn't the first Yu-Gi-Oh. No. 2 years prior was another Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, there was a Yu-Gi-Oh that came out 2 years prior, which a lot of people have dubbed as Yu-Gi-Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh Season 0. Yeah, they dubbed it Yu-Gi-Oh Season 0, and for good reason. If you look at some of the mangas, if you will, you look at some of the mangas that came out at that time, and you will see that basically those mangas are very violent in nature. They're very violent in nature. I have 2 of the volumes. I have the first 2 volumes, honestly. And you can tell the big difference. They are like violent in nature like you would not believe. And the first adaptation in 1998 had a lot of different names to it. It had Season 0. It had A Game of Darkness, I think, was another name it went by, and everything. it had, you know, it had an atmosphere to it that if you watch a little bit of it, you could definitely see that even though you could definitely see that even though they are still very violent with Duel Monsters, that came out 2 years later, you could tell that season 0, Game of Darkness, or whatever you want to call it, was a lot more violent. It was a lot more violent than even the series that came out 2 years later, which also was very violent when it came to its latter seasons. And season 0, Game of Darkness, whatever you want to call it, had 27 episodes. Yeah, that's right, 27 episodes from, it looked like but from essentially April to all the way, because it was a weekly show, all the way to October 10th of 1998. Yeah, it basically, it was basically, a weekly show, but very, very dark in a sense, much darker than, like I said, the series that follow up. And what's crazy is basically, again, I think when you look at season 0, it goes by what the original manga, went by when it started. Again, I have 2 volumes as we speak. I have 2 volumes of the manga as we speak. So it went by that, from what I understand. And then after that, the manga started following more with the series that came afterwards. It started to follow more with the series that came afterwards. A lot of the stories actually came from that manga as well after the initial season, from what I understand. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know there are some out there that probably know a lot more than I do. Like TGS Anime knows more. Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything knows a little bit more. So, guys, correct me if I am wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But, yeah, basically it was a lot more violent. It was a lot more violent. And it was followed up by a theatrical short film that debuted in March 6th of 1999. And it basically says here, it says the series, season 0, or Game of Darkness, loosely adapts the first 59 chapters of the manga while adding several original events and characters. Fans commonly refer to it as season 0 to distinguish it from the later Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. So there you go. Like I said, it adapts from the manga. Like I said, I have 2 of them. And believe me, when I read these mangas, I was like, holy crap. Now here's the thing. The stories in the manga were loosely adapted into Duel Monsters as well, but because Duel Monsters was going to come overseas to the US and such, they had to cut out certain moments and scenes from the initial airing in Japan to kind of make it more passable for Saturday mornings and weekday afternoons. And that's very understandable, frustrating, but understandable. But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! To me was just like one of those series that when you get into it, dubbed or not, you can't stay away. You can't. And when I started working at Burger King, honestly, and even before that, because I had a VCR, but then I had a DVD recorder, I had an Apex DVD recorder, 2 of them actually, and then I had an ILO, which is ILO, and now I have a Sony one, which is in the living room. But when I had those, every morning I would get up, not every morning, but every Saturday morning, I would get up and I would record onto DVD and VHS the episodes. VHS, then DVD, the episodes. And when I was working, what I would do, unless I was able to request a day off, what I would do is I would set my DVD recorder or my VHS recorder, mostly my VHS, to basically record the episodes of any shows I was missing because I was working. Then I would come home and then I would connect my VCR to my DVD recorder and basically send the episodes onto DVD so I could have them right then and there as I please. And this was at a time when I was making compilation DVDs and everything for the shows I'd be usually watching on a Saturday morning or something, but couldn't because I was working. So I would do that, and that's how I was able to catch up and everything. And I could tell you honestly, when I would go online and I would see the differences between the seasons I was watching of Duel Monsters and everything. Mostly when we got to the last couple of seasons, I don't think I'm alone in this. I don't think I'm alone in this, but when you looked at those last seasons, you compare them, my goodness. If you thought the first couple of seasons were kind of dark in their own right, even dubbed, slightly altered and dubbed here on the U.S. soils or here in North America and so on, if you think they were slightly dubbed or altered or whatever, kind of toned down in violence, but still kind of, violent in their own way, if you think that was bad, the last couple of seasons, with the exception of the KC Grand Prix, even though it had some violence in it too, with the exception of the KC Grand Prix, everything else was as dark as, and Lord forgive me for saying this, dark as shit. And especially when you look at the original Japanese version, because oh my goodness, that was dark. That was dark when they did the Dragons arc, if you will. That was dark, when they did the final season. I mean, my goodness. Heck, it was dark even with season 2, Battle City, and everything. And that whole thing with what's I can't even think of his name right now. Merrick. The same thing there. It's like you look at the flashbacks and everything. It's like, oh my god. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like, what in the world? But again, as violent as those seasons were, season 1, 2, and 3, at least the beginning of 3, and the beginning of season 5, nothing compared to, the Dragons season, if you Awaken the Dragons, and the flashbacks and everything, if you watch the original Japanese version, as well as the original Japanese version for the ending, for that final confrontation. Because one thing that was always common with Yu-Gi-Oh! Was there was this one spirit connected to one of the characters. And that spirit was, the ancestral spirit of Bakura. Mostly we would find out that was Zork, who was a dark spirit. And he possessed the Millennium Ring. And, not the Millennium Ring, but the Millennium Necklace, or whatever you want to, no, the Millennium Ring, that's what it is. The Millennium Ring. And basically, long story short, throughout the show, you would see this, this dark version, this dark spirit, this Yami Bakura, if you will, take over Bakura's body, take control of him, and basically he would always tell people he cannot be killed off. He cannot be destroyed. He even told Yami Merrick when they dueled in season 2, and that was dark. That was a dark kind of duel, even for Saturday morning standards, but even more so in the original version. He even told Yami Merrick, who you thought was like powerful in his own right, he's telling him, I am the darkness. I can't be destroyed. And it's like, holy shit. It's like, what is this guy talking? You hear this and you're like, holy shit. It's like, how powerful is this guy? He's being sent to the Shadow Realm, but yet he's saying he can't be destroyed. What the heck's going on? And then you get to the final season and you find out that this thing is unescapable for Bakura because its connection with him, and it finally, overtakes him. And then we get to that final season, and my goodness, I can't tell you I can't tell you how good that final season was. Dubbed, if you saw even if you saw the dub or the original, I can't tell you how good it was either way. It really was. But again, the biggest difference, was the violence. Honestly, how dark it was, how violent it was, even for Saturday mornings. And you can kind of tell where, during certain moments and scenes in that final season, where they altered things, where they changed things. I mean, we finally get Zork's final form, if you will, which we all got a hint at was basically a final evolution of Diobora, which was a card that Yami Bakura had in his duel against Kaiba. Basically, and I know I'm saying a lot. I do apologize for that. But basically, he's like a final form. What they had to do between the original version and the dubbed is they had to alter the scene. Because that snake that's like at the side in the dub, that snake came from was protruding from someplace else, if you know what I mean. But my good. But anyway, this was like crazy, this final season. And again, like I said, you could definitely tell that they were given a little bit of leeway, to get a little bit more darker than usual, probably as dark as they ever could, but they still had to, like I said, cut corners, alter things, and all that to kind of make it passable. But man, in the end, it was worth it. It was worth watching because it's like if you could ever ask for a perfect ending to the original series, and I'm not counting Dark Side of Dimensions, which it is a continuation. It's definitely a continuation. But if you want to talk about a decent ending, if you don't count Dark Side of Dimensions, this was it. This final season, the final duel between Yugi and Atem, because we find out that's what his real name is. Yami's real name is Atem. And for Kaiba to accept the fact that what I've always thought was bullcrap, always thought was nonsense, hallucinations, and everything. For him to finally come around and be like, yeah, I do accept it being real and everything. And, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was just perfect, just perfect ending and everything. And yeah, they did kind of have Kaiba kind of, I don't know, admit to it more so in Dark Side of Dimensions. I got to go back and watch it. Or at least allude to it and everything. So, while alluding to it, but I guess in an accepting kind of way. But yeah, just terrific ending if you don't count Dark Side of Dimensions. But what always got me too, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks about this, is why didn't Taya, whose Japanese name was Enzu, why didn't Enzu ever just come out and tell the Pharaoh how she felt? I mean, why didn't she just tell the Pharaoh she was in love with him? Because that was always like, it's like, hello, Taya, anybody there? Anybody there? Taya, tell the guy. Tell the guy. But she didn't. And I think I know why. Because Taya was in love with Yugi. Not just Atem. She was in love with Yugi. It was through Atem. It was because of her feelings, her crush, for Atem and everything, her deep feelings, romantic feelings for him, that those started to manifest, for Yugi. Because through Atem, Yugi became who he is. And because of that, Taya started to fall for Yugi. I mean, there's even a moment when Atem and Yugi are in the final duel against each other, and Yugi kind of makes a comeback, and Taya kind of like has a sigh of relief, but then she has this thought in her mind, like, when did I start cheering for Yugi? It's like she couldn't believe what she just did. And that right there says a lot. That right there, that moment says a lot, because I think that is when she, along with the viewers, started to realize all these feelings she had, all these romantic feelings, this crush she had for Atem was actually for Yugi, has been manifested over to Yugi because of his growth, thanks to Atem. And we see that in Dark Side of Dimensions, if you will. We see that kind of in Dark Side of Dimensions and all that. So, at least I think we do. I got to go back and watch it again. But the thing is, it's like, to me, why didn't she tell him? Especially when he's getting ready to walk into the spirit world and everybody's crying. They don't want to see him go. And Taya's bawling her eyes out. It's like, Taya, tell him. Enzu, tell him. Tell him you're in love with him and you don't want him to go because you are in love with him. You have feelings for him. And if you have to, you'll go into the spirit world with him. Well, why not just have her do that? I mean, the Japanese version, crazy enough, when it came between her and Rebecca, alluded to both Rebecca and Enzu, if you will, Taya and Rebecca, kind of acknowledging that they cared about each other, but Rebecca kind of acknowledging to Taya, yeah, but you care more about the Pharaoh than you do Yugi in a romantic sense. So, and I think that kind of caught Taya off guard. But the point is, it's like, why not tell him? You had the open door, tell him. You went on a date with the Pharaoh, with Atem in control of Yugi's body in season 2. Tell him. It's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyway, that to me is like, that to me was like, you know, the one thing that obviously a lot of franchises that originate out of Japan, whether the Konami-based franchises, Sega-based franchises, and all that, that is the one common thing that's like, are you serious? So you're not going to have your hero get acknowledged by, you know, his female counterpart, someone that has a thing for him? You're not going to have it acknowledged that she's in love with him or vice versa? It's like, to me, that is like that is the stupidest thing you can hold back on. And the other franchise, well, I'm a fan of it too, and I think a lot of people know which one I'm talking about. But anyway, I thought that was a missed opportunity, but I will admit that they at least acknowledged throughout the series, through Yu-Gi-Oh! Himself and Atem, that there was something there between Enzu, Taya, and Yugi/Atem. They at least acknowledged that there was something there, but they didn't really officially make it official, if you know what I mean. But then here's what's crazy too. Now, obviously, it looks like if you watch GX or one of the future Yu-Gi-Oh animes, it looks like Joey and Mai got together because there's a character that looks like Mai, that's a reporter and everything, and people are questioning, even in short videos, is this Joey and Mai's daughter, just by the way she looks? Don't know. But here's what's crazy though. You knew these two were going to get together and everything because of their opposites attract dynamic towards each other, but we never got resolution. We saw Mai dueling with that one girl, that one character from the KC Grand Prix that had a thing for Atem and all that. You know, we saw her dueling alongside with her against this brother duel we had seen before. But yet we had no resolution about her and Joey. I mean, she basically says that she's driving off on a motorcycle that she'll be back, but she can't face Joey right now because she's got to make up for what she did because she was under the control of that one guy during the Dragon Saga. But, and again, what's crazy is we had no resolution. Even a reuniting of them at the end of, at the end of the series. Now, I don't know if there was any interaction with them in Dark Side of Dimensions, I should say. Again, I got to go back and watch it. But it's like, why didn't we get a resolution? And obviously, I guess if you count this one character some people are talking about, in a short video on the YT, I guess there is a resolution because if that's the daughter of them, that's cool. That's great. But it's like, why couldn't we see it, visually on screen? I don't know. But outside of all that, I thoroughly enjoyed the anime and the anime and the franchise overall. And I'm always happy when something new comes out. I'm always glad to see something new come out. I mean, I have Master Duel on my PS5. I have Master Duel on my PS5. That's how much of a fan I am, and you've seen that on my YouTube channel when I've played some duel matches and everything, with those online. Yeah, I haven't done so well, but I think I've done pretty decent for myself, in my opinion. The point is, I'm always going to be a fan of this franchise. I have 2 posters, believe it or not, stored away in the garage, of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I've had displayed in my apartment and when me and my family lived in Patterson. So, I am definitely a fan. I'm always going to be a fan. And I'm never going to, stop being a fan unless, the series finally comes to a conclusion. Then I'll still be a fan, and everything. But, if there's no more cards to be sold, no more animes and all that, then that's fine. I could look like anybody. I'll be able to look back fondly at the memories. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But, I'm always going to be a fan. I mean, I have a lot of cards. I mean, one of the Bushido statues, or whatever they want to call them, that I have is of Dark Magician Girl. You know, that's one statue I have. I bought that. I bought that Dark Magician Girl statue, and I'm going to buy the other one that's coming out eventually if I get the opportunity, of Magician's Valkyria. I mean, again, to me, this is a franchise that no matter how old you get, I'm 45, going to be 46. This is one of those franchises that you can never grow out of. Never grow out of. You keep being a fan of, and you keep enjoying, because it's always going to be around in some incarnation. And this being the 25th year anniversary of the card game and of the anime and everything, and then next year, 2026 being the overall 30th anniversary. Yeah, this is definitely going to be around for quite some time. But guys, that's all I really want to say. I just wanted to come out here, share my fandom, my fandom, if you will, for Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowing this is the 25th anniversary, knowing we're getting a new game compilation later this month and everything. Just wanted to share my memories and all that. Let me know what your memories are. What did you enjoy about Yu-Gi-Oh! The most? What things do you think they could have resoluted, in the original anime? Not season 0, but the dual monsters. What do you think they could have resoluted there? And all that. Tell me if I missed anything. Correct me on some things if I'm wrong. But yeah, give me your memory. Give me your thoughts as fans as well. And until next time, guys, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere. You can find me at all your favorite audio, video, podcast affiliates like iHeartRadio, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Overcast, Radio Public. Wherever there's a podcast being aired, you'll probably find mine there as well. Also, check me out at VENMO at BW Roses, Odyssey.com at BW Roses, Rumble.com at BW Roses. Also, check out the Venmo and the Cash App to help me support me there. And at Patreon.com, BW Roses as well. Also, check me out at the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. And, guys, check me out at Twitter at BW Roses and Blue Sky at BW Roses. Also, you can find me at DeviantArt.com at BVW1979 and InkBunny.net at BW Roses. But, guys, give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you feel about this. What are your memories of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise? And until next time, I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.